Hello and welcome to the Amateur Skeptics Podcast, number 77. I'm your host, Brian Heinesser. Joining me this evening is an illustrious crew, starting off with Ian.
Oh, I get to be first again. Hey! Yeah!
And Mac.
I thought you were going in alphabetical order, but clearly not.
And Kimberly.
I'm very disappointed to be last. Again. No, I'm fine.
But not least.
How's everybody doing?
I can't win. I cannot win. Can I?
That may be the theme of not just the show, but life.
of my life specifically, right? You're talking about
life,
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I accept that. And I will reiterate Kimberly's question, because I'm the one who should be asking it, not you. How is everybody doing this evening?
Doing just fine here.
Doing good.
Yeah?
I've had a good 3-day weekend, which is unusual for me to have
Yeah?
a 3-day week.
What did you do this weekend?
The big thing, okay. There's an organization here in Denver called the Denver Area Science Fiction Association, known as DASPA. I just took over as director of it, and the first program I ran was I had Brian and Baxter from the Rocky Mountain Paranormal Investigators do one of their little programs for it. And it was actually really fun. It went over very well. We meet in a small independent bookstore. Due to some of the promotion of the group, we actually had a bigger turnout than we normally do. So it was actually pretty packed, which worked out really well. Anyways, hello?
Yes, we're here.
Right?
We're just intently listening to what you had to
Had a word beep
say.
and was checking something. Thought didn't hear y'all. Anyway, so we had a nice crowded meeting with a lot of new members that were very impressed with basically Brian Baxter did a UFO program showing like the more recent stuff, that we had covered the Fox 31 UFO thing, that they went and showed how it very much could be a bug, and actually went into more detail on that, which was fun. And a lot of the older stuff that we've seen before and talked about as well. But it went over very well. We had one member of the group who is exactly who, we're talking ahead of time about Brian and Baxter being there, everyone predicted she would be the one most likely to have issues. And she doesn't believe in this stuff. She actually is a member of MUFON, which is the Mutual UFO Network.
Yeah,
and they actually what?
Yeah, I was going to say, they're big here in Colorado, and as far as UFO groups go, they're better than some.
Yeah, but she's a member of that, and so she actually was heckling them through it. And finally, at one point, Baxter turns and said, "Listen, if you want to come up and run the program," and that kind of got her to back off a bit. But it was amusing. But it was a good crowd for it. They were very into it, very interested in what they had to say. So it went over really well.
That sounds good.
And if you ever get the chance to see Brian and Baxter do a programming, I highly recommend it. Every time I've seen them do it, they've just been great.
And of course, they'll be at Skeptic Camp.
Yeah.
So
Which brings us to announcements.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
We might as well, right?
We might as well, yeah. Let's do it.
Okay, so coming up, we've got the Free Thought Exchange is going to be doing a presentation over at West Bowles Church on Thursday the 24th. I also wanted to mention real quick, the Thinking Atheist has a video featuring Jason Testerman, who we've, of course, had on here before and who runs the Free Thought Exchange. It's really good. I got to watch it the other day. So if you check out Thinking Atheist, which I recommend, you'll see that on there. So that's the next, going into churches and talking about atheism program. On Sunday, February 3rd, the Pikes Peak Skeptical Society is doing the Secular Bible Study on what is Christian Scripture. On Sunday, February 10th is the next Humanists of Colorado monthly meeting. We're working on what the program's going to be. I'm kind of hoping for a creationist versus evolution debate because Darwin Day is coming up. It will also be the first meeting held at the Secular Hub, which is having its official grand opening on Tuesday, February 12th. And that's going to be in celebration of Darwin Day. We're going to have James DeGregory from CERT, which is the Colorado Evolution Response Team, is going to do a presentation. And the hub is going to be open. You don't have to be a member on opening night. You'll get to hear about it, but everybody's welcome. We'll have some more information online right now. I don't have a link for you. On Sunday, February 17th, the Denver Atheists and the Pikes Peak Skeptical Society both have it listed for a debate, reality, Christian theism, or atheism, which apparently has our friend Jason again. on the atheism side. So that's down in Colorado Springs, which should be a good one. Saturday, February 23rd, COCOR has Catherine Stewart on her book, The Good News Club, The Christian Writes a Stealth Assault. Same day will also be the Fort Collins Skepticamp at Mulligan's. On Wednesday, February 27th, it looks like Richard Dawkins is going to be back in town down in Colorado Springs.
Kimberly, hold on 1 second. I think the full title of that book is The Good News Club, The Christian Writes Stealth Assault on America's Children.
Oh, thank you. I guess it got cut off on what I was reading.
Yep.
Good deal. And I believe that Catherine is presenting with Richard Dawkins at Armstrong Hall down in Colorado Springs on Wednesday, February 27th. I don't know if there's going to be any other Dawkins events. Usually when he comes into town, they try to schedule a few things. So keep your eyes open for that. We'll let you know if we hear anything else. And then all the way in April, you mentioned Skepticamp. That's going to be on Saturday, April 27th. So get on that participant list there. And then I also wanted to mention that through the Secular Hub, we're going to be doing the second annual Colorado Secular Conference somewhere in June or July. And I'll have more information about that soon, too.
All right. You guys, have you ever heard of the Global Information Network?
No.
Only a few minutes ago when you mentioned it.
Only a few minutes ago when I mentioned it. Well, my mom mentioned it, and she also mentioned Kevin Trudeau's name in association with it, that he was doing it. Like that was, a mark for its,
some kind of ringing endorsement
right,
of goodness.
Exactly. And I went, Kevin Trudeau, the man who has been removed from television by the FTC.
Federal Trade Commission or FCC?
No, it's FTC. I just looked it up.
Federal Trade Commission.
Yeah,
okay.
Has removed him from television. He, for his credulous products, he's involved in numerous legal battles right now. He's the author of a whole bunch of books. And you're right on stuff like natural cures, what they don't want you to know, more natural cures revealed, weight loss cures. Let's see. The weight loss cure they don't want you to know about and stuff like that. How to basically all these, things, how to eat what you want and lose weight. And then you open up and these restrictive diets. And so he's all these products that they keep, taking away. And finally he's now hiding out in Switzerland. He's not allowed back in the U.S. because he'll be arrested. And, all of his followers are claiming that, it's because he's, of course, they're out to get him. The government's out to get him.
Right.
Well, it kind of sounds like they
right?
are.
Yeah.
It kind of sounds like they are, but for legitimate reasons.
But for legitimate reasons, right? They're like, they want to take away his free speech rights. It's like, well, no, they just want him to stop saying bullshit. And so my mom has gotten involved with this group and I learned early on, you can't just go, it's a bunch of bullshit. So I've been trying to give her little nuggets about Kevin Trudeau here and there, and so she finally went and started looking him up because she's involved, she got involved in this Global Information Network and she's going on a cruise. She got a free cruise from them and there's nothing free about it. I think that she's paid for it in dues and stuff. She won't tell me exactly how much she spent. Which is a sign that she knows, at least I think it's a sign that she knows that it's probably bullshit and she's trying to cover for it now. And I guess I also have heard that she's gotten involved with a whole bunch of psychics that are involved in this group. And, and they do some metaphysical stuff too. And it really sounds to me like they have these levels and stuff. And it sounds to me like Scientology for business. When you look it up, you find a lot of people are using the Global Information Network to build a network, to build a business. And there's other people that'll sell you a product that say you can't use the Global Information Network without knowing how to use it. And buy my product, it'll tell you how to get the most out of the Global Information Network and that kind of garbage. Have
you asked your mom when the group plans on mass poisoning themselves?
Well, and right, they also had a whole bunch of stuff regarding 2012, I guess. And my mom finally started to get a little bit suspicious of them. She asked one of the guys that was at one of these higher levels. She says, well, what do you learn at these higher levels? And he says, well, you just get a deeper understanding. It's like, oh, that's really interesting. And so I think she's finally worked her way out of it. Hopefully she'll take her cruise and be done with it. But it took a little while. She had to finally go out and start doing the research herself to really understand it, and I've just been watching, saying, well, are they asking you for a bunch of money? Are they trying to, because they want you to build a downline. They want you to, build up this network. But they don't have a lot of products, it looks like, and it's weird, but it costs a lot of money to go to each of these levels. And it totally sounds like the Scientology model, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, and the pyramid schemes kind of.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Kind of marketing, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you checked your mom for engrams?
I have not, but I'm sure that I can find a Scientologist happy to do that. Yeah, so I've been...
Engrams, candygrams, whatever.
Right. But she's finally, I hope, worked her way out of it. And she had to, of course, do it herself. And I was trying to be hands-off and just ask questions. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, it's like she's not starting a business. I don't understand why she was doing it in the first place. It's like she had no idea what she was actually paying for when she joined this group. And I'm like, it's for building a business network. She's like, yeah, I'm realizing that now. It's like, oh my God, I don't know what their dues are. I would like to, I'm going to check and find out approximately what they're paying. But the idea is, of course, you get people below you, and that's how you make money. And this woman in Denver.
That sounds somewhere between Scientology and Amway.
Exactly. That's exactly what it sounds like to me as well. Well, because you buy yourself up these levels as well. And I guess Mary Kay has levels depending on how much product you sell. So but this one looks like you actually buy your way to the next level and you get some of Kevin Trudeau's wisdom, which.
Well, hold on a minute.
Okay.
That may be worth it because, supply and demand, that's in a really, really limited quantity.
Right, because there's only one Kevin Trudeau.
If it's scarcer, it's worth more.
I'm just really thinking that he got his wisdom from L. Ron Hubbard. That's what I think.
Well, and how different is that from your typical?
The guy from Middle Earth?
Yes, the guy from Middle Earth.
L. Ron Hubbard?
No, it isn't. It sounds exactly. And then the language that they're using, it's the same kind of language you see with all of these types of, pyramid types of things, where, if it doesn't work, it's because you're not using it right types of stuff. Mm-hmm. People can make, you have the potential to do this and this and this, and you'll be one of the 1% and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
And
and they don't do the math that makes you realize very quickly you need more human beings than there are on the planet to support these kind of pyramid systems.
Well, and my mom was always like, well, but the people who get in, if you can get in on the ground floor of one of these things, you can make a lot of money. I'm like, who? She's like, well, this one woman in Denver, she, for some reason, got involved in it. Somebody that she pulled in, got a whole bunch of people in that knocked her up really high in a level, apparently. So yeah, I'm not saying that it can't work for one or two people, right? Shackley, I used to, do work for, the woman who took over Everett G. Parsons, half of the business from Shackley, and she's doing quite well. But
like you say, what she's really selling is people on the idea of doing this.
Exactly, that's what she's supposed to see.
Selling franchises of this system, and
Well, and the woman that I used to do computer work. She was selling a lot of products. She had a office with a whole lot of products. She moved a whole bunch of product. I don't know and she was no longer in the position where she was going out and trying to get people under her. She didn't worry about that. She was just at a point where all she did is sell product, but she took over. It was started by Shackley and Everett G. Parsons, and she took over his half of the business. So yeah, she's making money, right? She's at the top of the pyramid.
Like you say, somebody's making money.
Oh yeah.
Because, these things keep popping up and the numbers are staggering. I mean, you kind of can't get your head wrapped around them sometimes, with the Bernie Madoffs and all of these kind of very similar schemes of, if you get a couple of people and they get a couple of people but it's really staggering. But yeah, I never know anybody who's actually bought any of those products. I've had friends basically suckered into Amway and they're sellers, and I don't know who. Do you know anybody who's actually bought Amway stuff, or have you only known sellers? Because that's my experience.
I have mainly known sellers, but I'll tell you what, I did buy.
I've purchased Amway and I have tried to sell it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and the Shackley products are okay. I mean, the
products themselves are fine. It's just the marketing system just mathematically doesn't work. Right.
And where you are in the system, how high you are on in in the program, whether you're at the top or whether you're at the bottom, the products cost you a different price.
Right.
So at the bottom, you pay a higher price for that item and then try to resell it, where the person at the top can probably resell that at a reasonable price and actually make money.
I've got an interesting little anecdote about a guy that I encountered in a barber shop who was really talkative, and he invited me to this. He invited me to this meeting to hear about what he was involved in, and I'm like, it sounds like you're carefully avoiding saying Amway. And he said, "Oh no, I'm not carefully avoiding anything."
Right.
Guess what it turned out to be?
Amway.
Yeah, Amway.
Yeah.
And afterwards, he's like, "Well, what did you think?" I said, "I think I told you I didn't want to get involved in Amway." And he's like, "Well, yeah, but I thought that." I said, "Then you thought wrong. I'm moving."
Yeah, I recall the one time I was approached and they were trying to recruit me to become a seller for Amway. They didn't tell you a thing ahead of time. It was really...
Distributor.
Distributor, fine, whatever. But they were trying to recruit me, and the sales pitch didn't tell you a thing about the company and what they did. It was really, they wouldn't tell you the name of it. They wouldn't tell you how you did anything. You had to attend a meeting before you learned a thing about it. And so I attended the meeting, and I'm like, okay, this is stupid, and never even thought about it after that. But it was just so vague, so we're not going to actually tell you who we really are and what we're really doing until we can get you into the big meeting. Like that.
On the subject of what we're discussing tonight, which is the taboos.
Yes.
Amway's a taboo.
Well, we're talking about sexual taboos, so tell me how you can fit Amway into that.
Oh, there's a fetish for it somewhere.
Well, I think that a lot of these, you're right, because a lot of these pyramid scams, or multi-level marketing companies, nobody likes to tell you that's what they do. It's so funny that people get involved in these things, but yet they can't tell you what they do because it's embarrassing. So yeah, it has become a cultural taboo.
I don't know if it's necessarily that they consider it embarrassing per se, or that they know what kind of a reaction they get if they're going to tell you what it is.
Well, if they're worried about that reaction, why are they worried about the reaction they're getting to it if it's a legit, upstanding business?
Because you just wouldn't understand, Brian.
They should be embarrassed, okay? Let me put it to you that way. They should be embarrassed.
And I tend to agree.
But Amway, don't they own a field or something in some state? Isn't there an Amway field?
I don't think they are Amway anymore. Aren't they something different now?
Yeah, I think they're called something different.
Yeah, I think that they had too many legal issues under Amway and had to star something, right?
Yes.
So you change the name and sell the exact same product all over again.
Right.
Which is Trudeau's thing, too. Right?
Exactly. That's Trudeau's thing. Yeah. But, to go back to that, I've been really worried about my mother getting conned, right? But it's been difficult for me to hold my tongue. So I hope
don't know how you could do it. I don't think I could, without losing my mind, watch that happen. That's got to be tough.
Well, I've been hopefully strategic, and she knew. Well, she wouldn't tell me that she's hanging out with a bunch of psychics, right? Because she knew what I would say. She didn't tell me that, exactly why she was getting involved with this network, right? She told me about it. And sometimes I wonder if she tells me about this stuff just to see what I know or what I'm going to find out. She had another product that people were trying to sell and claimed that it had been tested and everything, and I kind of squashed that one for her too, and she never bought it again. So I don't know if she might have been probing me. That might be the reason she told me at all about the network. Maybe. She
doesn't want to do the research herself.
Yeah, that might be.
So she's kind of telling you so that you'll do it.
Right. And quite frankly, I like investigating bullshit, so that's okay. Right?
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win, right? And
as opposed to all of these schemes, which is a win-lose.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Well, and at that point, you join at these things, and I don't know, my mom's always looking for the quick fix, unfortunately, and it scares me that somebody's going to get her at some point. Yeah. So far she's gotten out of them before it's been a huge problem. So.
Well, and these things do also work on a numbers thing. They don't need to get her for every cent she's got to, if they've got 100 of her, they can take just a little bit.
Well, she told me, that the dues were like $78. Or that and it's like, well, how many months have you been in? And she finally admitted that she's paid a lot more than that she's basically paid for this cruise. Cause I'm thinking there's no way that you're going on $1,000 cruise for $79 and they're not trying to hook you and that,
Right.
So,
and I'm sure there's also going to be, because even when you don't get a free cruise, the taxes and the fees that are never included in any of those things are most of the cruise.
And she's finding out that she's going to have to pay that stuff, and they were not very upfront about that. It kind of sounds like she's finding out now that she's going to have to pay all of those things. So you're probably right. She's probably going to get stuck with a fairly large bill that she's not expecting.
Right.
So
and like you said, and on top of that, she's already probably paid for this 3 times over.
Right. With whatever her dues are and stuff. So
it's so tough. I mean, but they're using that. I'm sure she fits a number of those criteria that they look for, right? Like you say, she's looking for, easy fixes and get rich quick things, and they tap into that because that's a natural want. We've talked about that on the show before, how everybody wishes there was that magic pill, or whatever. It's very easy to exploit, and it sounds like that might be what they're doing here.
It does. And I kept telling her, she's like, I'm getting a free cruise. I said, you're not getting a free cruise. They're not giving you a free cruise.
And then it's going to probably be like one of those timeshares where it's just like, and you have to attend this, and you have to attend this hard sell.
I asked her about that. I said, are you required to go to some meetings and stuff? She says, I don't think so. So I've just been trying to ask probing questions and try not to be overly negative. And you're right, it's tough because I just want to blast it. It's just so scary, and it's such nonsense.
Like I said, I don't think I could handle it as well as it sounds like you're doing. I think I'd blow up. I think I'd be like, you're an idiot. And of course that doesn't get through to anybody. I mean, I know it's not the effective way of doing it, but the frustration level, and like you say, and combine the frustration with the fear of how badly is she being taken advantage of, and what is this going to mean for the future? I mean, it's tough to keep your cool.
That's my inheritance she's wasting away. So
I don't even worry so much with my folks about inheritance things. I kind of figure I probably won't get a dime. It's winding up with their bills, or winding up with them if they can't, if everything's gone. And it's like, we're just going to stay with you for the rest of our lives. Like, I wake up in cold sweats on that one.
And I don't know. I'm just worried about her, wasting a whole bunch of money. I mean, she's lucky that she has right now, Para has money and that she's getting her retirement. But, with the way they're going after all of the Para and all of the government stuff, she's liable to not have a pension anymore.
Scary stuff.
Yeah, it's scary. All right. Well, let's move on from that to just total credulity. Yeah. Something I know what I want to say, but I can't say it.
Credulity.
Credulity. Yes. A whole bunch of
I just saw someone else is getting tongue-tied on the podcast for once.
It happens all the time. We've all done it. So I don't know. So I haven't read any Bigfoot news in a while. I just been kind of avoiding it because it just gets so nonsense. But I decided to indulge. And there's always something with Bigfoot going on. And so I saw something in my email that said that Bigfoot captured alive was a hoax. And so I have to check that out. And so I found somebody who thought it was just as credulous as I thought it was. In fact, the site, I read some other stuff on this site. It's, calfmom.com? Is that right? And the sir. And, he's just so upfront about stuff. It's just, he's going off, he's talking about, Bigfoot being found and everything. And then he just totally blasted. It was great. Let's see. Bigfoot behind bars. You guys, is this really happening? I mean, I'd be shocked if it was as the entire world, if I saw Brian Williams standing outside of a Bigfoot cage reporting on this. it just seems to me like the Bigfoot stuff has gotten to the point where
Okay, so this thing about Bigfoot captured is from January 2nd.
Yes, it was.
And in 72 hours' time, they're supposed to know more.
Oh, yeah.
Well, if you look, I put a link to the Mid-American Bigfoot.com.
Oh, good.
I decided to, I wanted to find out about. They have the same thing, and that's even like a week later. It's been like almost a month, it looks like, since they might have captured Bigfoot, and they seem to not have followed up with anything.
Right, but if you go back and if you Google that, you'll find stuff going back like last year and years past about the same claim.
Yeah, so it's one of those interesting things where apparently about a month ago, someone caught Bigfoot. That, it sounds right. It sounds like they actually did it.
Then nothing.
It just,
yeah.
Kind of like the
and as we've seen
away
before,
from it.
Yeah, and as we've seen before, time after time of it not quite working out just doesn't seem to diminish the next person's credulity.
Right.
Like, this time they really have Bigfoot. Not last time. Of course they didn't have it last time. I knew everyone knew that.
So if they've got Bigfoot in a box, are they therefore potentially looking at felony time for unlawful imprisonment of a sentient species?
Well, I think they're going to charge him with every Bigfoot attack ever.
And that way they can justify holding him.
Right.
Okay, well, then they can only hold him for 72 hours without charging him.
Well, they'll charge him. Don't worry about that. It's just so funny. So the other one that I got was about a big piece of Bigfoot footage that predates the Patterson Gimli film. And it's so funny because they're talking about, this piece of footage and they're watching and he's hopping from rock to rock because he doesn't want to leave footprints. Bigfoot is so damn smart.
Sounds more like a convict on the run to me.
Patterson Gimli film? Gimli's not a Bigfoot. In fact, he's rather short. Yeah,
but he took the film.
Okay.
He wasn't.
Well, then
Bigfoot.
Obviously Bigfoot is going to look taller then.
Yeah. Well, the camera adds 10 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my first thought. It's like, Bigfoot's apparently constantly hiding his footprints. And I'm like, that makes no sense on any level. If someone was doing that, I would be suspecting, he's hiding from the law or hiding from people in general. I wouldn't be thinking of some sort of creature.
Well, and not surprisingly, the video is from Colorado. But we don't actually, we don't have a lot of Bigfoot sightings, but we have great Bigfoot sightings. We have Bigfoots in wormholes in Colorado Springs.
Yeah. And
now we have the first footage ever of a Bigfoot that came from Colorado.
Uh-huh. Although I'm a little puzzled about this. It could just be the way the article is written, but it sounds like they were on a Boy Scout camping trip and took the film, not videotape.
Right.
And then his dad showed the footage to the other scout leaders on that trip, which would not be possible because it would have to have been developed first.
Well,
unless I misunderstand how film works.
No, and you do. They could have shown it, of course. Yeah, no. It doesn't sound like it. But
and then to wait 50 years is a bit weird as well.
Who knows?
Yeah.
And ultimately, who cares? Does anybody, I know that there are a few people but does anybody really believe Bigfoot's out there? Or is it just so easy to sell this kind of sensationalized crap?
I think there are people that do believe.
Yeah, it seems like it. And for the same, I guess, weird reasons that they believe in the fairies and the angels and stuff like that. I think some of it is just they want the world to be more interesting, which is odd that that's the direction they go with it. But yeah, I don't know. I understand your point, though. It's so incredible that this kind of stuff would be believed, but boy, they seem to.
I know they seem to. I know. All right. Well, but to go along with that, I have a Harvard professor that's seeking adventurous women to give birth to Neanderthal clone. So
nice.
What?
It's nice.
Yeah, so I don't know. This is from CBS News, so it must be real. And it might be real. I mean, we have the genome. I mean, we could potentially do this, right?
Yeah, but we have Neanderthal DNA in us even now, so, why bother? And assuming that we do actually manage to create a full Neanderthal, how unhappy is this creature going to be?
Well, that's the other problem, right? Is that they're going to be the only Neanderthal around. That's it. Just them.
The article itself mentioned how you'd need multiple. It does mention that at one point, saying that for it to have a sense of identity, it'll need a companion at least.
Yeah, and is that really enough? I mean, give me a break. This is a laboratory experiment. And
exactly what does he mean by adventurous woman? I got like a mental image of Lara Croft here. I'm just asking.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, hold on. Now, see, there's the connection right there. What they're going to do is they're going to clone a lone Neanderthal. Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt are going to adopt it.
Well, I'm thinking that Geico ought to jump on this. This is
I don't think anybody wants to see those commercials anymore. Not after the TV series.
They'd be in real trouble, right, if we clone a bunch of Neanderthals, because then they really would be around.
Yeah. I got through about 15 minutes of the pilot for the Cavemen show, and I think I was probably in the more tolerant average of the United States.
Yeah, I caught like 1 minute of it and thought, my God.
Of which one? Of what?
The show they did based off the Geico commercials.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they made a sitcom, a 30-minute sitcom, based on the Geico caveman commercials.
So this guy says the first thing we need to do is sequence the Neanderthal genome, which we have actually done. The next step would be to chop the genome up into 10,000 chunks, and then synthesize these. Finally, you would need to introduce the chunks into a human stem cell. If we do that often enough, then we should generate a stem cell line that would get us closer and closer to corresponding sequence to Neanderthal. We developed these.
Have they considered instead of breeding Neanderthals and a human woman, have they considered using cows to create something that would have, organs that would be transplantable into humans?
That sounds like the making of a really interesting book.
It does.
And we could call the book Ancestor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The sequel to that, since the only two survivors are brother and sister of that species, the sequel to that book is going to be called Incestor.
And that's not true. That's not what the sequel is called, but thank you very much. It's a Scott Ziegler book called Ancestor, and it's a lot of fun. And that's what that long, drawn-out diversion was.
Yes.
Is a book by
Scott
Ziegler.
The sequel is going to be called Descended, and that book was fairly chilling. It was Scott Ziegler is really, really good at writing up his science.
Yes,
he
absolutely.
makes sure his science is good before he writes the book.
Well, we should send him this, and he can introduce this into the next one there. So, all right. So I thought those were fun, but ultimately, what my friend at work that sent this to me is like, I hope it's a girl so I can bang her. Great.
Because, of course, he's never had a Neanderthal chick before.
Yeah, exactly. He's never had a Neanderthal. Well, and then I told him, but Neanderthals like anal. And he said, well, never mind.
Oh, they like to clean everything?
Yeah, exactly. They're notorious cleaners.
Okay.
But that brings us directly into our next subject.
It brings us where?
It brings us what? Huh? Yes, because tonight I started thinking, well, taboos are kind of, and actually this stems from something that in high school I was a part of a program called Odyssey of the Mind, where you do different kind of scientific challenges and stuff like that, and to do different things. So our teacher would come up with something that a project we were supposed to solve. And so we were supposed to come up with a strategy for doing a search of the school, looking for a person. We were supposed to figure out the fastest way to do it. And so she went and she asked the teacher to go and hide. and then we were supposed to do our search. And so we came up with a strategy that we thought was the fastest way to do it. So we searched the entire school, didn't find him nowhere. And he had pulled a little bit of a switcheroo on us, and he hid someplace that a group of boys would never think to go. You just don't go into the women's bathroom.
Okay.
That's where he hid. So it ended up being a lesson in social taboos and sexual taboos because that was a taboo place for us to go. We never went in there. And so that's always kind of stuck with me. It always has made me kind of think about, what kinds of things are we missing because of these taboos?
That wasn't nearly as bad a transition as I was expecting.
No.
Go ahead.
Okay. Right. King of the segue. So, basically, it comes out that a taboo is basically a cultural prohibition of an act. Is that a reasonable definition?
Yeah, I'd say so. It's something. It's not necessarily that it's a cultural prohibition. It's a cultural discouragement.
Well,
I mean, it's not like you can. In most cases, it's not like you can be charged with a crime if you do these things. But what is more likely to happen is that if you violate a taboo, you're likely to be culturally shunned. Okay,
so what?
So I would say it's more of a cultural discouragement, and it's a strong discouragement.
Well, okay. Wikipedia uses the word prohibition. Have you read the Wikipedia definition here?
I know. I'm just throwing my 2 cents.
Then that's fine. Prohibition of an act
I'll just
based
go
on,
and edit Wikipedia so that it says what I want it to.
And that's fine. You can do that. A prohibition based on the actions based on the beliefs of such a behavior is either too scary or too screwed up. Anyway, there's 2 places where these generally tend to stem from. One of which is, of course, religion, and that is huge with particularly with sexual taboos. And then we can culturally have certain taboos about stuff too, which we probably have many of them. I mean, like, it's kind of taboo to go around killing people. It's also kind of illegal.
So you're saying the prohibition against murder is a type of taboo?
I think it could have started that way, perhaps. And maybe that's not a great argument, but think about it. When you're starting to form, groups of people, if one person kills another, you ostracize that person. Maybe that's not a good example. Okay, skip that.
No, I think it's actually not a bad example.
Okay.
It is, if you're building societies, one of the most important things in societies is to have protections for the members of that society. And one of the protections that needs to be in place is from other members of the society.
So you might make certain behaviors taboo and punish them.
Yes, you would.
Okay.
I see where you're going.
The 10 Commandments have a prohibition against murdering another person. They have a prohibition against stealing from another person. I guess the 10 Commandments all pretty much boil down to thou shalt not steal anyway, because murder is the theft of a life. Coveting the neighbor's wife is contemplating the theft of the wife, so on and so forth.
Right. George Carlin does a good job of breaking that back down into the single one too. What were you saying, Kimberly?
I mean, I kind of associate, and maybe this is just me, taboo versus maybe evil. I'm not exactly sure what terminology I want to use, but I guess part of my definition of taboo is that there's also something a little bit silly about them, like that they are unnecessary to the society, but that a lot of these came about with it. And that's why I guess I'm objecting to maybe murder being part of that, because I think murder is not a silly prohibition to have.
Well, some taboos are silly and some taboos are not.
I that's kind of what I was thinking too. Yeah. Breaking a taboo is usually considered objectionable by society in general, not merely a subset of a culture. So isn't murder generally considered objectionable?
Yeah.
Depends on who you off.
Okay, so I understand that where you're going with a taboo being a silly thing, but I think that it's a much bigger thing. And when we start looking at, when you start looking at taboos, I mean, sex is huge, right? So the first place that I went was masturbation, right? Because it is a cultural taboo.
Well, the first place most guys go is masturbation. So
Actually, I was going to go with Taboo. It's a bowling ball made by Hammer that comes in 3 flavors. There's the original Taboo, there's the Taboo Black, and the Taboo Purple.
and there's the artwork.
Just a big bowling ball. All right.
Yep.
So, but really, I thought, I think of masturbation because the church because it is, well, and it's specifically religion that has created this taboo. And so I started looking at this website, Why Masturbation is Morally Evil, how to free yourself from it.
Yeah, that was an amusing read.
Yeah, so he basically he goes through, basically that he's going to show you why it's morally objectionable. And ultimately, it says, masturbation unveils against natural law. And so go ahead.
Jump back and point out, he gave how he was going to prove it. He said, I am going to use natural law, sacred scripture, and teachings of the Catholic Church. At no point does he use scripture in it. And there's a reason for that. Scripture has the whole Bible, one reference to masturbation. And that whole reference is, I can't remember the name, but the guy was supposed to knock up his brother's widow. And he decided not to. And he masturbated it says something about masturbating under the wall instead in defiance of God. That is the only reference to masturbation being bad in the whole Bible.
Okay. So he...
Well, now, the natural law thing, I want to address that because animals masturbate.
Okay. So what the natural law ends up being is basically... let's see, I got it here.
The only purpose of getting off is to produce kids.
Let's see. Yeah, the sexual organs were only created for use with each other. That ends up being the natural law. He goes through all this whole thing, and when you break it down, that's the only thing that he ultimately says that is the natural law. That basically the sex organs were made to be used together. Yeah. And my issue with that is, if that was the case, if they're only been made to use together, why do men produce so much semen?
Well, he also had an interesting line at one point where he was talking about masturbation is like using an automobile for a sailboat. Not only are you not using it for what it was created for or purposed for, but you're going to ruin the darn thing? I'm sorry.
Yeah, but there are plenty of vehicles that were created to be amphibious that can do both, and you don't ruin them.
Yeah, and also,
like the Lotus Esprit.
No.
I've never heard of masturbation ruining the damn thing.
Oh, I know. No.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know. Right. And then they go into what the Catholic Church has to say about it, right? And he talks and talks and talks, and ultimately it comes back to the Catholic Church says that it's against natural law. So it becomes very circular right there.
And also, once more, it mentions basically it's causing your own pain somewhere else.
Yeah.
They keep trying to convince you that you're actually hurting yourself by masturbating without providing any actual...
Yeah.
Well, I kind of think that one depends on how much.
So the Catholic Church says it's moral evil according to the natural law. So it's evil according to the natural law is ultimately what I got out of the Catholic Church.
3 actions to free yourself from masturbation. First,
these are fantastic, aren't they?
Yeah, especially the third one. I love how it was phrased.
Okay, well we'll get to the third one, but so
make a decision to stop.
Okay. But in there they make reference to that it's that it can be as addictive as heroin and stuff like that. Yeah, you know what? In some ways you get a lot of the same kind of high out of masturbation that you do for heroin. But I'll tell you what,
it's not going to kill you.
It's not going to kill you, and I can masturbate and still go out and bowl. I don't know if I could do that after heroin.
Okay, then the second one, call masturbation what it is. And I don't quite get what it is.
Well, it's never going to bring you closer to God.
Right, exactly. That's ultimately what, yeah.
Right here it says, it always hurts.
I'm doing it
what?
Wrong.
Yeah.
Have you tried a lotion?
I love number 3. Don't do it alone. Do it with God.
Okay, but this is actually the only one that I don't have a problem with. At least the first part of it, don't do it alone. Because it's like, hey, Jen, I'm going to masturbate. Can you come watch? And can you call me a dirty sinner while I'm doing it? That's hot.
So is Jen your God?
Sure. Why not? I mean, it's closer than anything else.
Now, I've understood that God's a bit of a pervert, because if you look at some of the Catholic stuff, they talk about, the marriage bed and how God's with you there and stuff like that. So I'm not too surprised by this last one.
Okay.
Right.
Wait a minute. What you want to do right then is repeatedly invite God into your sinful desire.
Yes.
By calling on the name of Jesus Christ.
Well, and most people do. Oh, God, I'm coming. So invite God to watch. Absolutely. Why the heck not?
Well, he sees all.
And so the next one.
Yeah, the next one's interesting because it's not religious. Yet
Okay,
it's
yes, it is. It is absolutely religious.
He doesn't make it obvious.
It's overtly religious, but yeah, so it's called masturbation. It's not healthy for you, contrary to popular belief. And in this first part of it, he says that these are based on his own opinions and that he hasn't done any scientific research to validate his claims. But in here, he says that we not only have to take care of ourselves physically, but we also have to take care of ourselves spiritual, that we have spiritual health. And so he rambles on, but what I loved, so remember that this is not based on any sort of scientific research.
Right.
He said so in the beginning. So, but here are the things that masturbation can cause.
Right.
Fatigue, lower back pain, thinning hair loss, weak erections, premature ejaculation, groin testicular pain, concentration and memory problems, sleeping problems. Now, but of course, none of these are justified in any way whatsoever.
But he claims the common effects of masturbation. He claims that they are common.
Right.
And
in his anecdotal.
Maybe
whatever.
It was him. I mean, is that how we tell the masturbators, the people that have hair loss? Because if that's true, I must never get myself off. I got a nice full head of hair.
Well, then you don't masturbate enough. That's the problem.
I thought common symptoms were actually supposed to be hair growth.
Not according to this. So
no.
as far as I can
no. Hold on. He must be talking about thinning hair loss on your head. You're talking about hairy palms. Two different things.
But
he doesn't mention it. Yeah. And he doesn't say anything about glasses here either.
No, that's true. Okay.
Everything he says is the same type of mentality of assuming. The
right.
hairy palms is the
right.
old wives' tale, and all this stuff is at the same level of no evidence whatsoever. In fact,
okay, but
didn't we go over an article a while back talking about how masturbation?
Oh, well, we like to talk about masturbation, so probably. This is the other part that I like.
Let me ask you this:
okay,
if concentration and memory problems are a common symptom, is this article evidence of what he's been doing?
I don't know. Maybe.
I'm just asking.
Well, okay. How about sleep loss? Man, if you can't sleep, what do? You masturbate, and then you can go right to sleep. I have the opposite problem there.
I love this
every time you ejaculate, you use approximately 3 to 5 milligrams of zinc.
Okay, I was just about to read that. Yeah, so he says, and then he tells what zinc is good for, testosterone, yada yada. And then he says, but you think that this happens when you're actually having sex with a woman, but that's not true. So apparently, when you're having sex with a woman, the woman's secretions can offset that.
Okay.
Yes. So. So all he's saying is that you should use your sperm as a lotion when you're finished to reabsorb that zinc.
It rubs the lotion on, it puts the lotion on, or else it gets the hose
again. All right. Kimberly, you're awfully quiet.
I'm good. I'm fine. Okay. I don't have a lot to add.
Are you pro-masturbation?
Sure.
Okay, great. So,
I mean, and again, to get it into like a little bit more of a serious realm, I am having every couple of years I reread 1984 by George Orwell, and he talks very clearly in there about how in that case it's the party, but you could very easily put it to religion, is all about controlling sexual expression.
Yes.
As a way of controlling people, and it really, I mean, all of these things against. You would think that if the religious are usually so intent on keeping everybody virgins, right, until their wedding night.
Yeah.
That you would think if they were really logical about it, they'd be like, "Listen, I realize you got urges. Here's a great way of taking care of them." But they go so much further. Then they're like, "No, you can't do this either." And it's like, they're so it seems just stupid and counterintuitive by limiting you in all expression. But the reason they limit you in all expression is because if they can turn that desire into devotion to them and into obedience, if they get you to buy into this, the primal human urge, then you'll buy into anything.
Right. Well, and here's the fact of the matter is that people masturbate. 95% of all men masturbate. The other 10%,
5% lot.
Right. The other, I was going to say the other 10%, no arms.
Let me throw out here, you said primal human urge, and I'm going to make this point again. It's not just a human urge.
Oh,
yeah.
Primates masturbate. Dogs masturbate. Do you think they're humping your leg for some other reason? Birds masturbate.
Right, so you're taking something that we are wired to do and wired to enjoy and telling you can't do that because it's a sin. And if you do it, you're a sinner and you're a bad person.
Uh-huh. But my point is, if it's against natural law, animals wouldn't do it. The other point
I don't completely buy that either.
Laws is kind of a fallacy, right?
What's that?
The idea of a natural law, when it applies to behavior, is a fallacy in and of itself.
That's what I was just going to say. Yeah, I don't care if animals do it or not. We can talk about just humans, and we can say whether it's an urge or not, that we see nothing wrong with it. Mm-hmm. Right? And I don't need to justify it by saying dogs do it. So I get that, yeah, it's not really a natural, the natural law is, procreation and masturbation. Okay. I'm good with that. I just don't see that as, we can look at gay rights and say, and we make the argument that, well, homosexuality is natural. Well, whether it's natural or not, it doesn't really play any part in whether they should be allowed to marry. And it's kind of the same, that I would make the same correlation here.
I do want to make also the point that I am not pro-masturbation, but I would be willing to be paid for it.
Okay.
That is what pro-masturbation means, right? Paid for it?
No, it just means that you're in favor of masturbation.
These ambiguous words.
Yeah, they're so ambiguous. Yeah, that's what I'm getting you for Christmas. A dictionary.
Actually, it's kind of ironic. I was offered an old dictionary today when I was at my parents' house. And they're like, do you have any use for a dictionary? I said, no.
And
they're like, well, why not? I said, because I just look it up on the internet.
That's right. It's like somebody hands you a phone book and you're like, what is this? There's no keyboard. How can this do anything? All right. So, of course, Ian has found a crack.com article for us. So, Ian,
this one I thought was interesting because it deals with bizarre sexual beliefs. And reading through it, one of the things that came out of it is the cultures that definitely didn't have our taboos. And how it actually, you can see the benefit to not having them. So I'm just going to do the top 3 instead of all 6 because I think it was the number 2 one that I really thought was the most interesting. Number 3 is multiple partners, multiple fathers. Basically, the idea of having a polygamous family, any kids, they don't care, they don't get into the DNA and stuff. All the fathers who have been hooking up with the woman are the father of the baby. And they all act like it. They don't look at, in their minds, every one of them impregnated her.
Yeah, but, to get her, and then they make a separation between the husband, because they're married at a young age, and sexual partners. So they can go out and have as many sexual partners as they want. They just have this one husband.
Yeah.
And, okay, that's fine.
And basically what it means, the family unit stays strong, and they don't really care, it's not like, oh, that bastard's not my son, I'm not going to take care of him. It's like, no, she's my wife, this is my son, my responsibility is to take care of the kid.
Yeah.
It doesn't, I'm just as much the father as anyone else kind of deal.
So the
second one...
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, the second one, the idea is that, obviously they didn't understand biology, what they believe is that the children are basically reincarnations of their ancestors. And so someone dies, they stay as a ghost for a while, and someday they decide, hey, I want to come back and have physical form, and they start all over again. That's what they believe. So sex is not taboo at all on this island. The Trobriand Islands, and basically from an early age, you're engaged in sexual action because, hey, it's fun. It's something enjoyable. Why would it be bad? The whole island basically takes care of the children. because it's an awesome thing to have these people coming back, is the way they see it.
Have you read Sex at Dawn?
What?
Have you read Sex at Dawn?
No.
Kimberly, you read that, didn't you?
I started it. I never got to finish it, though.
That book kind of talks about it talked about a culture in China that I think they're probably gone now. I'm not sure, that kind of had similar ideas about having sex. Basically the women didn't get there was no such thing as marriage. You had the community, and the woman, when she became of age, would have this flower room, and she could invite whoever she wanted in to have sex with. The only real rule being that they had to be out by morning. So she might have several partners in the night, and the whole family, brothers and everything, took care of the children. So the fathers were, you don't know who it was, but the brothers were expected to help raise kids. And of course they had kids somewhere else, with some other family.
Right.
So
now, one of the interesting things is on this island, they apparently have yams that actually hurt infertility. It actually it hurts fertility. It makes them less likely to have children. And so the idea of having no taboos on sex and really being open about it helps maintain their population, because they are less likely to be fertile because of their diet.
interesting.
So that was one thing that they were looking at is, if they actually had the taboos and stuff and were really that hung up on sex, it would hurt them.
Sure.
And then, no female orgasm equals no baby is the number one. And apparently Elizabethan England, I believe it or not, had apparently that was a belief there, that if the women didn't have orgasms, they couldn't have a baby. So that one, I didn't find that as good as some of the others. And like I said, this is the 6 of them. I just went over the top 3, but
and to be a little bit of a downer, I mean, there are people who still, I think, kind of believe that. We had this whole, in the last election cycle, the assholes who were doing the legitimate rape thing.
Right.
I think there are people who believe that. Well, if she got pregnant, it clearly wasn't a legitimate rape because she wouldn't have enjoyed that, and she's pregnant, therefore she must have. It's a level of ignorance that's kind of astounding.
There was a guy who came out and defended that whole legitimate rape thing with his science.
His bullshit science.
Yes.
Yeah. So, the next article that I put in here, I really thought this was interesting. So this, Vancouver student, this was a high school project that she did. And, so the picture really just says it all. And she called it Judgment. And so she took one of her classmates and basically she's wearing a skirt and they kind of hike it up and they put these marks on the leg all the way up. And the first one is matrimonial. Basically, the skirt length.
Matronly.
Yeah. Matrimony.
Like mom, essentially.
Okay. And then the next one's, prudish. The next one's old fashioned. The next one is proper. And they go up the leg, flirt, cheeky. Provocative. Asking for it, slut, and whore. And it just as like, wow. Because.
Yeah, that's a pretty good image.
Yeah, and just the whole asking for it thing, it just irritates me that, because a woman would be wearing a short skirt, they're asking for it. Yeah, so these are all, were based on whatever skirt length. So it's quite an interesting photo.
It's very, very well done.
So we've gone quite a while here. So this now, let's do sexual taboos for singles and couples. This was an interesting article, and basically it gives a list of things that they consider sexual taboos. Masturbation, which we covered. Anal sex, group sex,
which we mentioned.
Yes, group sex, sadomasochism, bondage and domination, cross-dressing, foot and shoe fetish, bisexuality, pornography, and public sex. And I thought, well, that's a pretty interesting list. And then there's this other part of it. So other social norms. These are customs that are reflected in, gender roles, partnerships, relationships, friendships, marriage, and family. And this is interesting, but I would say even this list that she's got is very short.
Yeah. There's an awful lot of things that are not mentioned that are more taboo or equally taboo.
Right. Well, if you go to basically any porn site, just a bunch of pictures, you'll find, all sorts of stuff, now it's MILFs, 18-year-olds, erotic, rough sex, cartoons, bondage art, amateur stuff, old and young, mature,
Furries.
vintage. Fat women, big breasts, she-males, right?
Technically, Brian, the term you're looking for is BBW.
BBW, yeah. Chick with dicks. I mean, just on and on and on. And it's interesting because...
And combining anime with the chicks with dicks is futanari.
Okay. Anything with lemon in it is, is generally porn. Lemon angels, stuff like that. Hentai stuff. I mean, it's a huge, huge market. I mean,
tentacles.
Tentacles. Yeah. I mean, it has really, because this stuff is taboo, it has created a huge market. Huge.
Yeah.
And in some ways, I see that as healthy, but in other ways, I see it as extremely unhealthy. Because we've made these things taboo, but yet people still want them and want to seek them out. We've created this huge industry where they can go and get it, and that's great. But because it's so taboo, they can, the prices for this stuff, like for sex toys, what you pay for when you buy those things, they're incredibly expensive for what you get because they can charge it. Because what will the market bear? Well, because you're not going to, because people you can't buy them in Target, right? For the most part. It's very specialized shops. They were more readily available, more acceptable. I think they'd be cheaper. So I would really like people to get over it so I can buy cheaper sex toys.
Now, see, this is interesting. I am looking back on the Wikipedia article, and the word taboo actually comes from Tongan and Fijian. And we've incorporated it into English.
So ultimately, I think that there is a lot of harm here because of these taboos, and I think Daryl Ray goes into a lot of it. And one of the things that Daryl Ray says is that STD rates are higher amongst the religious, which I cannot find his source for that at all. Maybe it's in his book. I have not read his book yet, so I thought that was interesting. Of course, we've talked a little bit about how the church is used as to control people because they take something that is very natural and they twist it in such a way to make it seem evil so that they can control people better. Did I put that article in here? There are several studies claiming 95% of Americans are having sex before marriage. And it makes me wonder, we think divorce is the problem. Maybe marriage is the problem. It seems to me marriage was one of these things when you would live to be 30, that it was easy to stay with one partner for your whole life. But when we're living to be 60, 90, maybe that doesn't always work out so well. And so they've made divorce a taboo. I mean, the Catholics are against divorce, but divorce rates are the same amongst, the religious and the non-religious. They don't stay.
They're actually even higher. It's higher. The divorce rate's higher in the red states, which we kind of associate with being more religious. I mean, I realize that's a very broad brush, but I think it's kind of understood.
Yeah, but most of the stuff that I've read basically says the same.
I've made comment before on the fact that the reason that the Catholic Church lost ground in England and the Church of England became the main church there was because Henry VIII wanted to get divorced because his wife was unable to give him a boy child. So he broke with the Catholic Church.
Right. And because of this taboo and the way that sex is treated in this culture, we get stuff like abstinence-only sexual programs, which we know are a huge failure. And then I put another one on here from The Good Atheist, talking about the solution to the rise in STD rates: stop using condoms, says Catholic group. And,
what?
Yes, exactly.
That's what they do in Africa all the time. I mean, it's one of the primary causes, I think you can say, for the amazing rates of AIDS and other diseases in these countries that's the propaganda, is that the condoms are causing the STDs.
Right.
I haven't read that one yet. Is
So,
there any logic to?
No, there's no logic whatsoever. And so he says. So he starts off the article by saying he gives 4 propositions. The response to the rising car crash fatalities, drivers are encouraged to stop using seatbelts. The response to lagging literature rates, parents are asked to remove their children from school. In response to the spike in crime rates, the police are asked to reduce their presence in the cities. In response to the rise in STD rates, people are asked to stop using condoms. And he says, incredibly, all of these statements use essentially the same messed up logic. But the one given about giving up condoms to solve the STD problem is real. So and the Catholic Church is notorious for this. I mean, they're one of the reasons that Africa has the problem that it does, is by discouraging the use of condoms, saying, that the AIDS virus can slip through. Well, if the sperm can't slip through and the virus is attached to the sperm, does that make any sense? But for that logic is lost on them for some reason. So I think that there is a lot of harm to this taboo particularly. And I think that the other thing that it does is because it creates such, everybody's going out looking at it. I mean, well, not everybody, but probably the majority of men look at porn, and a good portion of women do. I know that the rates are lower amongst women, but it's created a huge inflated market to get this stuff, right? And nobody's talking about it, but everybody's doing it. So I think that if we can...
and it goes also to the more conservative states and countries in the world. Like the highest, and I don't have the source for this offhand, but I know I've seen it sourced a number of times. The hotels that have the most rentals of pornography are in Utah. I mean, and the same kind of thing happens in like Pakistan and some of these Saudi Arabia and stuff like that. Some of these really controlled countries in which they try, everything is marked at trying to control these urges of people. People are doing it anyway,
right?
So
yeah,
it's crazy. Another resource I would recommend to people. I read a lot of Dan Savage, and he's I think just a great writer.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, so check out Savage Love and just his books and stuff like that. Because one of the things he talks about, which I always thought was kind of interesting, is he has kind of said in a weird way he appreciates the taboos because they do. When you break taboos, it makes sex hotter. It feeds that fantasy life. Okay. And so if you came from a culture in which it was everything was accepted and nothing was off the table, it would get kind of boring in his role. I mean, and he says it a little bit tongue in cheek, and I think, he definitely would rather, that it wasn't so much of, when you make it a crime, I mean, that gets really out of hand. But making it, just a little bit like, oh, we don't talk about that or we don't admit to it, he argues actually stimulates stuff. He talks about fetishes and how they develop basically out of taboos that we don't know what to do with.
Okay, and I guess I think it could be done healthier. Mm-hmm. And I think that what religion has done to sex is criminal and immoral. And I think that that's really where the problem is. Telling people that they shouldn't masturbate is ridiculous. And making it a sin is ridiculous. And I'll bet that we would probably agree on most stuff. And maybe it is. I mean, yeah, maybe breaking those taboos does make it hotter. I just think that I think it could be healthier. I think that we could still have our taboos, maybe to his point, but yet we could
still be more sex positive.
But exactly, and I guess that's really what I want. I want more sex positive. Maybe it's not the taboo I have a problem with. Maybe it's the repression.
They do seem to go hand in hand. And it is definitely a fine line of of things. And like I said, if it's just a matter, to go back to kind of where we started, or one of the comments I made was that, if it's a taboo and it's a little bit silly and it's just something we don't talk about, but it's not as big a deal. It's like you say, when it becomes illegal, when people are being, abused with, you may not masturbate, you will go to hell if you do this. I mean, that's abuse. That's going past just having a taboo and turning it into something worse.
Okay. And that's point well taken. I guess what I'm looking for is we don't talk about that, but if we find out that somebody's into something that it doesn't have a negative judgment, it's just like, ooh, he likes that. That's what I would prefer. Mm-hmm. I want to have my strap on and wear it too.
Thank you for listening to the Amateur Skeptics Podcast. For more information about the Amateur Skeptics, go to amateurskeptics.com. To send us feedback, suggestions, or big flaming insults, feel free to contact us at WTF@amateurskeptics.com. Other contact information can be found on our website.
You can leave a voicemail for the Amateur Skeptics Podcast at 720-295-7785. Music for this podcast was provided by OFM. To find out more about OFM, go to myspace.com/OFMHQ. This podcast is released under a Creative Commons, No Derivatives 3.5 license. Thank you for listening to the Amateur Skeptics Podcast.
Amateur Skeptics website, Facebook, and podcast album art is provided by and copyright Shadow Knight Digital Portraiture. Larger prints or custom pieces are available upon request.
I think that's a wrap right there.
I think so too.
You just cut it. You don't even have an outgoing message. Okay.
However, I was not able to find any Neanderthal fetish sites. I did look.
That's awesome. It's awesome that
I looked Neanderthal fetish, and it turns out the only thing under Neanderthal fetish is like religious fetishes that they found. Under Google, I tried sexy Neanderthal girls, and that just didn't bring me anywhere.